Okay, so example 2 says determine whether or not the inverse of the function is also a function. Okay, determine whether or not the inverse of the function is also a function. So remind me, if we're looking at a set of points, what are we looking for to be able to say, yes, this is a function? What are we looking for? The x values. What about the x values? No repeating x values. Okay, so no repeating x values. Now, there are actually 2 ways that we can do this. We're asking about the inverse stuff. We're not asking about what we're looking at. What we're looking at is a function. Let's look at the inverse. So you can switch all your x's and y's. Yes. Thank you. Okay, there we go. Switch all of x's and y's. And then look to see if any of our x values repeat. So when we do that, is f inverse a function? No, because 7 is repeated. F inverse is not a function. Now, how could I have figured that out without switching all my x's and y's? Look at the y values. Okay, so no repeated x values of f. Okay, if we're wanting to know if f inverse is a function, f inverse is a function if f has no repeated y values. F inverse is a function if f has no repeated y values. So you don't have to list them all out. You can, you absolutely can, if that makes more sense. It's less confusing and you don't have to worry about, okay, am I looking at x's, am I looking at y's, what am I supposed to look at? Just switch them and you're always looking at the x's. But if it's not confusing, f inverse is a function if f has no repeated y values. So let's check just another one. Let's look at number 1 there. Looking at f, we're looking at the y values to see if any y values are repeated. No repeated y values, so f inverse is a function. Now, I know that it makes sense right now, but let's work on some study skills here. When you go back to look at this, you may or may not remember why we said that it was a function. So let's give it a reason. F inverse is a function because f has no repeated y values. Okay, f inverse is a function because f has no repeated y values. If we look at number 2, 4 is repeated as a y value. So g inverse is not a function. F has repeated y values. Now I know it means extra writing and extra time right now, but trust me, in the future you're going to be glad that you wrote that down on your paper because you're going to know what you were talking about. Okay, so really quickly look at 3 through 6 there.